Technological advancements take quite a bit of time and money to be developed, but what happens when the government decides that it's no longer worth it to keep up with the project? Bad decisions have been made throughout the 20th and 21st century that might have led many to wonder if it was even worth it in the first place. Many decisions have also left quite a few without jobs or even their lives, if not thoroughly contemplated. From the cleanup of roughly 53 million gallons of radioactive waste to the presidential helicopter, here are the most expensive military mistakes, Part 2.
Are you guys ready for another action-packed American Eye video? Let's get on to it.
Number 12. Palomares B52 Crash, $2.7 billion. The objective of the U.S. Global Strike Command Force was to always have a nuke on board a B-52 bomber in the sky. This would allow the commander-in-chief to coordinate an attack on a specific target without a long wait. Sometimes there was enough plutonium on board a B-52 to bring an end to the world as we know it. Not one, but 4 hydrogen bombs went missing in 1966 over the coast of Spain near one of the U.S.'s military bases. It was scheduled to receive a refueling mid-air by a tanker plane when tragedy struck. It appeared as though a few planes made contact at this moment, taking the lives of 3 out of 7 total crew members. One of the 4 hydrogen bombs on board exploded due to the contact upon impact, but it didn't set off a nuclear reaction luckily. However, the conventional explosion managed to still cause a massive amount of radiation to spread, causing a huge cleanup effort. The US Navy calculated that the total cost of just searching for the bombs was $10 million, but the bombs themselves were worth no less than $2 billion. 2 other bombs were recovered eventually during Operation Chrome Dome with the help of the submersible vehicle known as Alvin. In 2015, it was determined that the US would spend another €640 million on the decontamination of the radiation from this incident. Total cost around $2.7 billion. Number 11. BAE Systems Nimrod, £3.6 billion. Which Nimrod came up with this idea? It was supposed to be a planned maritime patrol and attack aircraft that was set to replace the Hawker Siddeley Nimrod Mr2. It was meant to provide support to Vanguard submarines carrying Trident nuclear missiles and detect submarines underwater. It required a lot more development than they'd originally planned and experiencing issues with the wing design. Eventually, in 2010, the UK government announced the cancellation of the project, which would lead to the dismantling of 5 Nimrods. Some even labeled this as a record-breaking waste of taxpayer money, and some even felt that they could be in service. Number 10. Presidential helicopter, $3.7 billion. How much is the president willing to spend on his own personal helicopter? The Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk is a 4-bladed twin-engine that's seen service since 1979. It's often used in search and rescue missions, and it's the official helicopter used by Mr. President. This photo we see here is the helicopter that we know of as Marine One. Being able to carry 4, including 2 pilots and 2 gunners, this ensures more firepower can be unleashed if necessary. The project started using the VH-71, but the Pentagon decided to terminate that project due to budget issues, design problems, and even President Obama said the whole thing was getting out of control. Eventually, the whole project was canceled, and they decided to go with a new helicopter. They decided to go with 5 VH-7As at a price of $485 million each. A total price of $3.7 billion was scratched, but the ones they're making now still seem ridiculously expensive. What kind of secret technology could these things be hiding? Number 9. The Boeing Sikorsky RAH-66 Comanche, $7.9 billion. Meant to be produced as an armed reconnaissance and attack helicopter, the Boeing Sikorsky RAH-66 Comanche was going to give helicopters stealth technology, or so they thought. 2 prototypes were constructed and test flying took place between 1996 and 2004. By the year 2000, $3.1 billion worth of engineering and manufacturing had already been spent, and heavy changes were needed already. It underwent heavy restructuring, and some predicted the price would end up being $26.9 billion after all was said and done, leaving many with doubts. In 2004, the Army announced that they would cancel all the work on the RAH-66, and they felt that unmanned aerial vehicles was the best way to go. Number 8. Gerald Ford Aircraft Carrier, $13 billion. The Gerald Ford is the first ship of the new class of aircraft carriers. This floating airport is a huge upgrade from the Nimitz class. The CVN-78 class aircraft carrier is the most expensive item to exist in the world and could soon be the most expensive mistake. That doesn't include the expensive aircraft on them either, or the research that it took to make this. This thing even has laser beams. It also uses an electromagnetic launch system that was criticized by President Trump, but others claim it will also increase life expectancy on multi-million-dollar planes. The newly designed nuclear reactors will also produce 3 times as much power as the Nimitz class. The total cost is around $13 billion, and right now is currently sitting in a shipyard and should be there until 2022. So until that year, this is one expensive money eater. Number 7. The BAC TSR-2, $15 billion. $15 billion back in the time of the Cold War was pretty expensive then, and certainly still expensive nowadays. The British wanted a reconnaissance aircraft that would also deliver a tactical strike if needed. They wanted to use jet technology that would be successful at accomplishing goals, but it was all easier said than done. Undercarriage vibration problems took place in a few test flights, and it was far from perfect. It even featured a thin film of gold on the cockpit canopy to protect the pilot's eyes during nuclear flashes. As the Americans were developing the F-111 project, it almost seemed like it was time for them to count their losses and move on. Many feel as though the British Ministry of Defense was setting too high of standards for the TSR-2. Some feel as though it's politics to blame for the cancellation of the project and not the plane itself. About $15 billion was spent and 3 were built before they threw in the towel. Number 6. The Osprey, $26 billion. It's a helicopter. No, it's a plane. Wait, hold on. It's sort of both. It's the Osprey, and anyone who gets inside this thing is ultimately risking their lives. Since it first flew in 1989, it's caused roughly 42 deaths and 50 injuries. A lot of the time, it's attributed to design flaws or mechanical failures, not by the ones flying them. During one notable accident in July of 1992, an audience of congressmen and other government officials gathered to take a look at the Osprey. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the right engine began to fail. The Osprey crashed into the Potomac River and killed all 7 of the crew. An Osprey crash even invoked a protest against a U.S. military base in Okinawa after it crashed into the ocean. It might look cool and futuristic, but many think this new piece of technology is more trouble than it's worth. V-22 Ospreys cost around $72 million each, and the U.S. is looking to build 400 of these total, making it quite costly. Number 5. The F22 Raptor, $62 billion. These supersonic jets can be seen at air shows, completely stupefying large crowds of spectators. Each unit, though, cost taxpayers $339 million each, but with air superiority in mind, the U.S. is planning on building a bunch of these at a total cost of $62 billion. There have also been quite a few crashes already, but the pilots were able to make it out of the aircraft okay with no injuries. However, pilots have also experienced serious respiratory problems, memory loss, loss of consciousness, and decrease in mental status while flying. A $24 million contract was also awarded to investigate the reason for the breathing problems. They concluded that pressure valves on flight vests were the problems, but it wasn't so clear. Many of these were also destroyed during a hurricane as well. It's still unsure if flying one might cause your lungs to explode, so let us know in the comments section if you've been in one before. Number 4. The Black Budget, $89 billion. So how much money do you think the government actually hides from us each year? The actual amount of money that the government spends on classified projects is unknown due to security reasons, but some reports will tell us around $89 billion a year. It's fairly complicated to estimate, but according to Edward Snowden, it was roughly $52 billion around the time he did whistleblowing. The government claims that the black budget is used to investigate advanced sciences and technologies for military purposes, but how sure are we that this isn't a huge waste of money? What do you think? Number 3. The Hanford Site, $107 billion. One of the many sites across the U.S. that's become contaminated due to the Manhattan Project, the Hanford Site was also the first full-scale plutonium reactor in the world. The best plutonium found in the country was put to use here and responsible for creating the necessary ingredients to construct the first nuclear bombs. They continued to produce nuclear weapons here up until the Cold War, and many of them were not tested. Problems in this facility have caused much of the groundwater to still be polluted to this day. It contains many hazardous materials within its walls as well. At the end of the Cold War, 53 million gallons of high-level radioactive waste were stored underground near this site, and it's believed that they are still actually leaking into the groundwater. Underground storage tanks were also discovered to be bursted open. Number 2. SEAL Team 6, American Lives. So what are the odds that the military sends 38 people crammed on a Chinook helicopter right into the middle of an intense battlefield? These weren't just your average soldiers either. Passengers on board were from the infamous SEAL Team 6, a group of Navy SEALs who the government reported taking out bin Laden in 2011. On August 6, 2011, not long after the mission at Osama's compound, the Chinook helicopter carrying SEAL Team 6 was shot down in Afghanistan, killing all 38 people on board. Many people, including the families of the soldiers, came forward, casting the possibility that this was an inside job and the Chinook was doomed to fail at the beginning. Others wondered why so many people were crammed into a single helicopter and the landing place that was set had never been used before. Obama expressed his condolences, but some even think that he had something to do with the crash and was worried that some of the Navy SEALs will give up secrets about the Osama mission. And number 1, invading Iraq, $2.4 trillion. What happens when oil-rich nations begin to compete for the most money and power? Many believe that the invasion of Iraq was the biggest blunder in American military history. Iraq's nuclear program didn't exist after all, and in hindsight, many are wondering how we even supported this decision in the first place. Iraq is now infested with ISIS and other undesirable insurgents. $2.4 trillion was spent, and countless lives were affected by post-traumatic stress, and civilian lives were seriously affected.
So which one did you think was the most interesting? Let us know in the comments section, and we'll see you next time.